talking about the Malden River. The name of our project is A Case for Actionable Community Development. My name is Deb Weinberg.
And I'm Brooke Amendola.
And we also worked with Regine Desir, Elena Graham, and Claire Moss. So we wanted to go straight to the river. As you can see, this is a sign which says public pedestrian access to the Malden River. Yet what you really see is a parking lot, a bunch of cars, and there's really no river in sight. So we're going to back up a little bit and show you where the project site is, which is in Malden, which is north of Boston. We're going to zoom in a little bit more. And here you can see that there is a river in Malden, which is next to the Commercial Street corridor. It's about a mile-long strip, and it runs behind Commercial Street, so people can't really see it because there's a lot of industrial uses that go on Commercial Street. And where we were, the previous photo was taken in the Super 88 parking lot, which you can see that we have on the map here. So things that we're going to talk about today that we've already kind of started to talk about are the obstacles, the research question and methodology, the goals for this project, the feedback that we got from stakeholders and communities, analysis of the plans that we've been looking at, and finally we're going to give some proposals and takeaways. So one thing that we realized when we started to talk to the stakeholders is that a lot of them really wanted the same things. So stakeholders want to see a more vibrant Commercial Street. They want to see more people out and using the river. And there's currently two plans that are in this location. The first is the Greenway plan, and then the second is the Commercial Street corridor plan. So there's already two plans for this same exact spot, but neither of them have really taken off or been put into motion. So that leads us to the research question: how can stakeholder interests be leveraged to achieve collective action? So the way that we went about this, in addition to assessing the plans, was to take an action research approach. So this is a participatory method in which we collaborate with the community and we take a look at practical concerns, practical problems, and practical solutions. This type of research takes place in partnership with local community groups who we have certainly partnered with for this project. And finally, the goal is to benefit the community that we are doing the research in. So the goal for this specific project, the first is to evaluate current conditions of Commercial Street and also of the river, and to assess the Greenway study and Commercial Street corridor plans to see how well they align with the stakeholder goals and just to see what they really say. The second goal is to facilitate collaboration between the stakeholders by providing immediately actionable recommendations, which will be detailing further shortly. So in terms of community feedback, the Greenway plan already did a really great job of reaching out to a lot of the community members to see what they think about the river. And the main thing that they said was that they couldn't find it. It was out of sight. It was really far away. It was hard to get to.
So we identified stakeholders in and around Malden to begin our research. We met with different stakeholders and identified four main themes that kept coming up in our conversations. These were river accessibility, coordination and cooperation, economic development, and multimodal transportation. In some cases, such as with Malden Redevelopment Authority or the City of Malden, they really do care about all four of these themes, whereas in other conversations, we felt that groups such as Friends of the Malden River or the MBTA were focused really on one or the other. In the case of MBTA, of course, transportation, and in the case of Friends of the Malden River, the river itself, which is to be expected, but we really wanted to map it out in order to see the overlap and to identify the feedback from the community around us. So to start the project, we focused on three main themes of environment, community, and government. These came from our previous conversations with stakeholders as well as from community feedback from the survey that Deb mentioned. So in January, we started out by identifying our site and stakeholders. We did some site visits, interviewed with experts as well as our stakeholders, continued to take a deep dive into the existing plans by UTL and Harriman and ICIC. We then continued with site visits, attending public meetings, and checking in with our stakeholders. So here is an image from the Greenway study, which was done by UTL Design. You see here that it was a visionary plan, so a lot of the focus is on the river itself, the surrounding riverbanks and the paths, the recreational uses, and just making this a visually appealing place as well as actually getting use out of the river itself. The next plan is the Commercial Street Corridor Plan, which was done by Harriman and ICIC. The focus of this plan is really on economic development and the Commercial Street Corridor itself, identifying potential new uses for buildings, employers, streetscape, things like that. We found it necessary to really understand both plans that already exist and to see why we didn't think that these plans were happening and how we could do something. We do think that both plans were really good and had some really good ideas. However, they were very big picture. So we wanted to focus our goals on small actions that could be attained as and serve as a catalyst for future development in terms of getting some of these larger scale projects accomplished. Again, as mentioned earlier, we broke our theme for our project into 3 topics: environment, community, and government. We then took a little bit of a deeper dive into each of those and looked at both plans accordingly. In terms of environment, we broke that into river access and water quality. You see the Greenway Study Plan by UTL in the darker blue and the Commercial Street Corridor Plan done by Harriman and ICIC in the lighter blue. We then identify whether we feel that the plans briefly mention the topic but lack a clear implementation plan, or whether we feel that the plan's goals align with our goals. As you can see, this will allow us to either see whether both plans align with our goals, one or the other, or neither. In the case of water quality, neither plan aligned with our goals, which we are then identifying a clear gap in that theme. We did the same for community. We broke this into economic development, community engagement, multimodal transportation, recreation, and some specific sites to our study area, such as the DPW or National Grid site. Something that you can note here is that we really do feel that one or the other plan in each of these topics does hit on our goals. When it comes to government, we broke this into zoning, politics in Chapter 91, and cooperation and coordination. Here, there is a clear gap, and neither plan we felt like aligned with our goals completely, which we would like to use this gap and the gap from the first slide in terms of environment and water quality as the jumping off point for the rest of our project. Something that I'd like to note also is that both plans really do focus on the north to south commercial streets corridor, as opposed to what we would like to focus on, and that is the east-west connection. Because of the orange line, there is a clear divide when it comes to residents living to the west being able to access the river. There are only 3 streets in our study area that cross over from past the orange line to the river, being Charles Street, Adams Street, and Medford Street. You'll see this video here as our group is navigating Adams Street from the more residential side under the orange line tracks, across the street, through the Super 88 parking lot, dodging cars and people, and lots of cement as we're trying to get to the river. It took us 3 trips to Malden to be able to find this river access point, which is the sign from our first slide of the pedestrian access. So you see that although very close in proximity, it is hard to actually get to this point.
So this leads us to our proposals. We wanted to provide a timeline of things that can be done right away and also things that can be done maybe in the summer of 2019 and then 5 years and beyond. So immediately in May, something that can be done is to publicize the Human Health Risk Assessment, which was funded by the Mystic River Watershed Association, and it actually had some very promising results. So the results were that the Malden River is completely safe for any sort of recreational use. So people can row, they can kayak, and it's certainly safe for that. So we feel that now it's time to adjust the perception of the quality of the water in the river, because we have proof now that it is completely safe to use. So now it's time to sort of let the community know that they can go out there. We were lucky enough to run into a friend of the Malden River who put across this trash boom. And what this trash boom does is that it's basically a net that catches all of the sort of plastics and trash that comes from upstream. So this is also just to show people that there are people who know about the Malden River and they care enough about the Malden River to spend their Sundays putting up trash booms. Something else that can happen right away in terms of community is to start a social media campaign, let people know that there's the Malden River. We made a mock-up here of an Instagram post that could just show this trash boom. This is a couple weeks after it was put up, just to show how much trash was caught there that's not going to be downstream. So people can know, there are people out there who are working on this, and so that other people can come and enjoy the river and see it as an asset. And as you can see, we put this in multiple languages to try to reach as many people as we can. And then for people who aren't on social media, we feel that we should be giving these brochures and campaigns in newspapers and on message boards, so that a wide range of people in Malden can come to find out about the river. We can create a hashtag, as you can see, that's a Malden hashtag, so that people can check in and really raise a social media following. Finally, in terms of government, we feel that the Malden planning team, they're already doing a really good job of attending community meetings, but just to sort of continue to foster that relationship is great. In terms of summer 2019 for the environment, industrial and commercial stormwater mitigation programs can happen, such as can be seen in this picture of the street sweeping. Things that could start to be put together in the summer of 2019 in terms of community are some programmed events like movie nights, yoga by the river. As you can see, this is a little bit further down on the Malden River. This is in Medford, but this is a river tour. This is a kayak launch. So if this sort of thing can happen a little bit further north, that would be a really great way to get people on the river and to know about it. And for those who can't actually go down to the river, there can be some sort of augmented reality, like with an app, so that people can see what the type of potential that there is for this location. And in terms of government, there can be a regional business council, perhaps with Everett and Medford, because those are also two communities that would benefit from there being a more lively action on the Malden River. And a wayfinding program can be created. We know that the MAPC has funds for this. So as you can see, this is in the top 5 languages that are spoken in Malden. So we want to make sure that this can reach the people who live in Malden who may not speak English, because you don't need to speak English to access the river. And finally, doing a Get Out the Vote campaign so that people can find out who their Malden City Councilor is, if their Malden City Councilor cares about this, and if they do, if their Malden City Councilor is ready to put pressure on the mayor to make some of these changes happen. So 5 years and out, additional receptacles can be put in, and there can be a campaign to reduce single-use plastic so that we can see less trash in the trash boom. A trash boom study could happen so that we can see exactly what sort of plastics are here. the continued programming of events. And in terms of the government, a complete streets program can happen so that Commercial Street is less car centric. We feel that a river overlay district is something that would be essential to create a continuous path along the river, because as of now there's lots of starts and stops in the path, and Chapter 91 is really not the fastest way to get this done. A bus route change would be great. So the bus line 97 does not go down Commercial Street, and we feel that it could be rerouted from Canal Street to go down Commercial Street so that people could have more of an opportunity to take different modes of transit to get to the river. And finally, beyond there is an abandoned rail line which could be retrofit so that there could be regional access to the river.
So here you see the current conditions of Commercial Street. You're seeing very tall streetlights. You're seeing big, huge blocks, industrial buildings that are taking up these blocks, and they're not very welcoming to pedestrians because it's not necessarily a storefront. It's just the facade of a blank, it looks like a blank building to someone walking down the street. The focus is definitely on cars. You're not seeing a ton of pedestrians. You aren't even seeing full sidewalks on both sides of the street. So we went to the Registry of Deeds to see how much room we were working with. In the widest width of Commercial Street, we're seeing it 70 feet across. And of course, there are still going to be delivery trucks because it is an industrial area and we're not trying to displace businesses that are already there. So we need to be able to accommodate both these delivery trucks and larger trucks, but also the new bus line that we are proposing, or the moved bus line that we are proposing rather, as well as proper access to pedestrians, bicyclists, etc. So you can see that we wanted to extend the sidewalk to make a mixed-use sidewalk where it is also ADA compliant, so somebody in a wheelchair is able to walk, as well as pedestrians, cyclists, etc. You are seeing greenery, increased greenery, wayfinding, the signage that Deb spoke about. We like the look of the streetlights, however, we would like to bring them lower as to be more welcoming to pedestrians. If we are having a moved bus line, we really think that it's crucial to have transit shelter for people that are waiting for public transit. This stretch of the Orange Line between Wellington and Malden Center is the largest stretch on the Orange Line without a stop, now that the assembly station has been created. So we really do think that proper public transit access is imperative to this area. Of course, you will then have a bus lane in areas that are wide enough to permit. However, we understand that a mixed-use lane would be necessary in some parts that are a little bit more narrow. We do want to add stormwater mitigation. We do see some greenery here, which is present already in some areas of the street, which we would like to continue because we are in such close proximity to the river. Here you're seeing an overview shot of Riverside Park. So right here on the corner is Dom's Sausage, La Marca Bakery is down here, and this is Commercial Street. So as you can see, this is a small cul-de-sac here. Close proximity to the water. Again, we wanted to focus on that east-west connection. Although this doesn't run under the Orange Line tracks, it is an access point to bring people to the river. There are over 100 businesses on the Commercial Street corridor with over 2,000 employees in this area, as well as all of the residents in the area. So there are a lot of people in this area every day, and how can we bring them to the river so that they're able to enjoy it? Here you see a zoom-in photo of our group hanging out in this cul-de-sac here on a Sunday afternoon. No cars going by. There are tons of open parking spaces, lots of concrete. We are in very close proximity to the river, and you can't even tell that it's there unless you knew that it was there. There's absolutely no riverbank. It's just going straight down into the water. So we wanted to look at what we were working with in terms of width here as well, in an attempt to potentially redesign this street. So we went back to the Registry of Deeds for that as well. So here you can see a little bit of a redesign. We want to have access for cyclists, pedestrians. Of course, there are still going to be cars that need to go down this area. There is a strong food truck presence in Malden with Stock Pump Malden and other food trucks in the area. So why not close down Riverside Park for a couple of hours during a lunch break? As I had mentioned, there are so many employees in this area. And if delivery trucks are only going out so early in the morning, such as 4, 5, or 6, during the lunchtime hour, you aren't seeing a lot of traffic, if any, on this street. So programming something, if we had, food trucks lined up, if we had program events along this area, it's going to bring people to the area, but it's also safe for people in this area. You see a little parklet, which is not only for aesthetic appeal, but also for stormwater mitigation, really trying to clean the water that is going back into the river. Again, here you see us in Riverside Park enjoying a Sunday afternoon. It was a beautiful day. Just thinking about the opportunities that this area could serve, we really feel like it is a catalyst for future development and could be the perfect jumping off point to continue with the development and get people excited about building up the river area. As I mentioned, you could have food trucks, you could have other program and events such as movie nights, yoga in the park, really focusing on how can we extend the green space that is present. Is all of the pavement that is there necessary, or can we take back some of that for public access and for people to use, not only for residents and visitors, but also for the employees of this area? Is something that we would really like to focus on. So for our takeaways, as we mentioned, we do want to focus on the connections, accessible wayfinding to the area. Down the line, we would like to see more storefronts as opposed to just industrial buildings. A lot of these are food industry buildings, so why don't we create a better storefront? Dom Sausage, the storefront portion is tucked around the back of the building, so unless you know it's there, you might not stop by. But how can we get these storefronts throughout these east-west connections to have people, walking through the community and stopping in there? We do want to create a brand, increase social media for this area to really gain popularity. We do want to make it more accessible and improve transportation for all. We think this can be done in the future. We want to program a lot of events, get people out into the environment, get people wanting to care for the environment, take care of it, and this can be done through community education and outreach.
So we gave a lot of proposals for things that have to be done, and there are going to need to be people to actually get these things accomplished. So we are giving 3 job recommendations in the themes of environment, community, and government. The first is an environmental planner who will continue the study of the water quality. And if the trash boom study happens, there's going to need to be someone to actually work on that. The second is a community engagement specialist who will work on continued community outreach, work on the social media that we were talking about, and also plan those events on the river like yoga and movie nights. The third job is an alternative transportation planner who will promote the use of multimodal transit, help with some of the improvements that we discussed like bike lanes and sidewalks, and also help with getting that MBTA bus line moved. We want to say thank you to all of our advisors and all the people who helped us with this project. And finally, we want you to use the hashtag
That's So Malden. If you have any other questions or want to learn more about our project, feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.